I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation is the death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe. A real tragedy for his family, but now a national debate on what exactly happened to him. Was it his girlfriend Karen Read who killed him, or fellow members of law enforcement? Here's the story. The death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe remains shrouded in mystery and controversy. According to prosecutors, O'Keefe was struck by his girlfriend Karen Read's SUV and left to die in the snow outside of 34 Fairview Road in Canton. But what continues to puzzle both investigators and the public is this. For hours, not one person saw his body lying on the front lawn. Guests came and went from the house that night. Headlights were on, conversations were had, but no one noticed John O'Keefe lying just feet from the curb. It wasn't until the following morning, when Karen Read returned in a panic, that his lifeless body was discovered. The timeline has fueled speculation and doubt. Could a man in such visible distress go unnoticed for so long? And what about his injuries? What story do they tell? The wounds on his head and the marks on his right forearm. And those marks on his right forearm have been such a big part of this case, of this story, of the litigation, and of trial 1 and now trial 2. Take a look at this photo. And this is one of those images where you just show it to someone, they're going to have an opinion. And for a lot of people, the opinion is, oh, it looks like a dog bite. But we're just saying that. Now, in the trial, obviously, prosecutors are saying it's not a dog bite, it's not an animal bite, it's not a dog scratch. This is from the tail light. This is from when he got hit by the car. So as we looked at that photo and you try to figure out, well, how do we figure out what it is? Well, the defense is saying it's a dog bite, and that brings us to the first question in our investigation, and it's a significant one. What are the characteristics of a dog bite wound or dog bite wounds? You know, what do they look like? What are you looking for? What is there? What is present? How do you figure it out? How do you go about doing that? So this is an opportunity where we need a real expert, and here to help us answer this question is dog bite expert Robert H. Brando. He has trained dogs for almost 50 years. Robert, great to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure. I'm joining you from the Florida Keys. I'm on vacation this evening.
Oh, fantastic. I'm jealous, but we're in the midst of this huge trial, so we appreciate you jumping in on vacation. How do you determine if something is a dog bite wound? What are the things that you're looking for? What are telltale signs? What are you looking for? How much do they vary? Give us a little bit of background about how you would approach that and what's typical.
We look at one of the things that's a telltale sign of animal bites, of dog bites, is the semicircular shape of the bites. And if you look around the elbow area in this photograph, you can see those 3 bites there and the 2 off to the right. It kind of makes a semicircle. And then down below that, you can also see the bottom half, how there's a semicircle as well there. And the other marks are also, you see, they're all in this circular pattern, except for the 2 up on the top shoulder there, which are probably the canine teeth that look back. The first thing I thought when I saw this photograph outside of this case was that it's a dog bite. It looks, the characteristics of these scars and bite marks look like a dog bite to me. It's what I've seen my whole career.
So he was wearing a light sweatshirt, right? I know it's a blizzard, it's freezing cold, but in Massachusetts, they don't wear coats when they go out. So he had like a light sweatshirt on. How would that impact the damage that a dog could do?
It's not going to affect it much. And the other thing to consider, too, is I was told that this is a police dog that was the suspect animal that had bitten him, a German Shepherd police dog. These dogs are trained in a specific way to bite, so they're not going to bite the way a house pet or an untrained dog would bite. They bite and hold and squeeze and apply pressure which is how they subdue the subject, the perpetrator per se. And it's also for a safety reason, so that the dog doesn't accidentally, if he was to release and re-bite, that during that re-bite process, the dog could bite someone else, anyone that was standing by, including one of the other officers. So the dogs are trained specifically to hold on and grab and not let go.
Yeah, there hasn't been a ton of testimony about Chloe, so we don't have all of her background. She may have been a retired canine that became a family pet or not. But let me ask you this, because this is another big part of it with the wounds that John O'Keefe had, that none of the wounds punctured his skin. They're more abrasive in nature, and that's what the medical examiner told us. How does that impact the way you look at what happened here if the wounds are not a full puncture?
Well, do we see that photograph again?
Sure. We'll get it up in just a second. There we go.
Sure. Okay. Now, those three marks there above his elbow, those look to be punctures to me, and they look to be deeper than half the length of the canine teeth, as well as those marks on the bottom side of his arm there. They also look like punctures, and they also look deeper than half the length of the canines, which is one of the things we look for in a hard-biting dog that we would expect to see.
Now, I want to play for you Richard Polsky, who's another expert in this area who we had on the program, and I want you to react to his thoughts about how you would determine whether or not this was a dog bite of a specific dog. Let's take a look.
You certainly absolutely want to take teeth impressions and to determine if the teeth are consistent with the wounds on the victim. For this expert says it's not necessary, it leaves me confused. You have to look at as much evidence as possible to come to any definitive conclusions. A dog bite injury is caused by the behavior of the dog. So you have to do an animal behavior analysis. And as I said, you have to look at the context, the motivation of the dog, the relationship. And I don't understand. I'm not clear if she did any of this. And if she didn't do any of this, then it doesn't meet the standard needed to come to definitive or reasonable conclusions.
So, Robert, from your perspective, let's start first with the behavioral history of the dog. With you working with dogs for so many years, is it a predictor of behavior? Can you tell which dogs would be more likely to bite? And what do you look for in the background to determine the likelihood or the danger of a dog?
Well, sure. Yes, we look for those things. The behavioral characteristics of the dog in this instant, again, from my understanding, this was a police dog, a retired or a trained police dog that is being accused of biting him. So I wouldn't be concerned with behavioral aspects. But the other thing that Dr. Polanski said was that we would look for an impression, a mold of the dog's mouth. And we use endodentistry for this, and we have done it. We have had the dog sedated, made an impression of the mouth, made a resin skull, and we could show that the injuries were from this particular dog. We could show exactly which tooth inflicted which injury. I don't know if that's necessary, because I don't think that the dog is in question. If it in fact is determined that these are dog bites, then we know which dog did it. So I don't know if it would be necessary to do that, but I do agree with him that having an impression of the dog and lining up those resin impressions to that bite would give us an exact determination as if it was that dog or not.
And that's an interesting twist. I haven't heard that before, Robert, where the molds are used in a case where you don't know which dog actually did it. There's a couple of or several dogs in play. Well, which one actually did the damage, so you can distinguish between one dog and another. But from your perspective, what you're saying is you don't necessarily need the mold to determine if it is an actual dog bite.
Correct. You don't need the mold to do that, but we would use it to determine which dog did do the biting.
Interesting.
Okay.
I want to play some of the experts' testimony for you. This is Dr. Russell giving a part of her opinion. I want to get your reaction.
Based on your review of all the materials that you had described and your experience that you had described, without stating it, were you able to come to any conclusions or opinions about the source and nature of the injuries that you see depicted on that exhibit?
Yes.
And what is your opinion and conclusion concerning those injuries?
Those wounds were inflicted as the result of a dog attack.
And Robert, what's so interesting about her opinion and how she got involved in the case is she saw, I guess, the trial on television or saw an image of John O'Keefe's arm, and she reached out to a friend who then reached out to the defense team. And she sort of came forward saying, yeah, it was obvious to her. Did you have the same experience when you saw John O'Keefe's arm? Was it that obvious? And to what level of certainty would you give it based upon just looking at the photo?
The first impression I saw that, I was in my office with two of my assistants, and all three of us looked at the image and went, yep, it's absolutely a dog bite. Next. There wasn't even anything for us to consider. As soon as we saw the image, we knew it was a dog bite.
All three of you. That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yes.
Robert Brando, we appreciate your expertise. We need help on issues like this, and you certainly helped us out tonight. Enjoy the rest of your vacation. Enjoy the vacation. Do some scuba diving.
Thank you for having me.
All
Thank
right.
you very much.
Coming up next, did Chloe attack John O'Keefe?
A VPI special report.
The P. Diddy sex abuse scandal that has rocked Hollywood and the world of hip-hop.
The downfall of a music mogul.
Combs abused and exploited women and other people for years.
An all-new look at the evidence and the latest from inside the courtroom.
That was the moment when everything changed.
Vinnie Politan Investigates. A Diddy special report. Wednesday night, 9/8 Central on Court TV.
At the end of the day, folks, there was no collision with John O'Keefe. So how did we end up here? How does Karen Read end up sitting in that chair on trial for an event that literally never happened? Well, the evidence is going to explain it.
And part of the evidence that the defense is pointing to are the wounds on John O'Keefe's right arm, saying they are from a dog. There was a dog in 34 Fairview, the home where the party was, the after party was, and the home of the lawn where John O'Keefe was found. That dog's name was Chloe. And Chloe, there was a lot of talk about Chloe during the first trial. Let me remind you about some of the testimony.
After you learned that there were questions being raised about John's injuries and dog bites and scratches, in May of 2022, you got rid of that dog, did you not?
Objection.
Sustained.
Chloe was rehomed in May
And we can use
2023.
whatever words we want to. Rehomed, rehoused, whatever. But you got rid of her. She's no longer part of the Albert family, right?
Objection.
Allow that.
Right.
Albert, you don't have Chloe anymore, do you?
Nope.
In May of 2022, 4 months after Mr. O'Keefe's death, you got rid of your family dog of 6 years.
Objection.
Oh, is that true? Is that when you got rid of your dog?
I did not get rid of my dog. I rehomed my dog.
Your dog is no longer in the Canton area, correct?
No, but I know where she is. She's in Vermont.
On the morning of January 29th, after 6 a.m., when it was still relatively dark out, you burst into the bedroom of Brian and Nicole Albert's home, correct?
Yes.
You did that specifically to wake up, according to you, Brian Albert and Nicole Albert, correct?
Yes.
Where was Chloe?
I don't know.
And you don't remember a 70-pound German Shepherd having any reaction?
No.
As a matter of fact, you don't remember the dog being there at all, correct?
Correct.
So some questions are, where was Chloe, but we've got a more important question to ask, which really goes to the heart of the defense allegations, and it's the next question in our investigation. Did Chloe attack John O'Keefe? The jury's going to have to answer that question. Here to help us with our investigation, Boston attorney, former prosecutor Karen Loftus, along with criminal defense attorney Sydney Rushing. Great to have you both here. All right, Karen, I'll begin with you. Did Chloe attack John O'Keefe? What do you think?
Well, I think, Vinny, based on the evidence that we have here so far in trial number 2, I'm not sure that there even has been enough to show that there's been a direct allegation that Chloe attacked John O'Keefe. We have had testimony in the Commonwealth's case in chief, I believe, only through Jen McCabe relative to whether the dog was in the house, was, barking or anything when she went in. And aside from that, we have Dr. Russell, who has now testified to the defense that she believes it could be dog wounds, dog bites. So I think that the defense really has to make more of a connection to inside of the house and to Chloe and to John making it inside of the house to really even make the argument that Chloe did attack John O'Keefe.
All right, but here's what I'm going to do. I am going to flush the rules of evidence down the toilet tonight. You can consider all evidence, whether it's presented in trial 2, trial 1, pretrial motion, or anywhere else. Sydney, what are your thoughts tonight about Chloe and John O'Keefe?
I think that it's a defense that needed to be brought up. I think it's something that's plausible, and that's what the defense needs. They just need to show that there's doubt in there. I think they're doing a great job of doing that. And it's, remember, the burden's on the prosecutor. So the defense bringing up that, this may be a dog bite, and now they have an expert standing up there and, Brennan cross-examining her and not looking too good. He's trying to say that she's not an expert, and she's like, look, I've been a medical doctor. I've seen over 500, dog bites. And, I think she's very qualified to speak on that. And again, this burden's on the prosecutor, not the defense.
Yeah, I'm hearing you. But Karen, what do you think about this concept, this issue? Is it throwing spaghetti up against the wall to see if something sticks with one or more jurors? Or is this a legitimate theory that the defense is exploring here?
Well, I think the goal for them is to poke as many holes as they can into the Commonwealth's case. And, Attorney Brennan has presented a different case than Adam Lally did. It's a lot more technical. It's a lot more data-driven. It seems clear at least what their perspective is. And so, does it have to be a theory that's entirely proven by the defense in order to, disprove the Commonwealth's case? No. So I think they're putting it out there with the other witnesses. We'll have Arca testify that they don't believe he could have been hit by the car. We have Dr. Russell testifying that it could be a dog bite. So what they're doing is, I think, essentially trying to present enough issues to say, hey, the police did such a substantive investigation. They didn't look at this potential outcome. They didn't look at this potential issue, and therefore you can't find Karen Read guilty beyond a reasonable doubt.
Karen, it sounds like you're describing some of that nice North End spaghetti. Mm-hmm. That's what that sounds like. Sydney, what's going on here? Let's pull back the curtain. Okay, we're looking at our system of justice like we do here all the time. Is the defense really attempting to prove this, or are they just trying to muddy up the waters? What is it that's happening here? I know there have been some limitations in some of the evidence of what they're allowed to explore and present. I get it, but what do you think is really the driving force behind this, that they legitimately believe that it was the dog and they want to get as much evidence as possible to convince the jury of that?
I don't think that they're necessarily trying to fully convince the jury that this is exactly what happened. But what they are doing is putting out another side of the story, because the prosecution story is that Karen backed into him with her vehicle, and that's the end all be all. So what the defense is doing is they're coming in saying that these injuries just do not line up. They've got an expert up there talking about how these align with dog bite punctures and the wound pattern. So this is something that they're just putting up there like, look, this is something that could happen. So I don't think that they're necessarily trying to say that this is exactly what happened, but I think it's like, hey, this is something that could have happened. And if it could have happened, that's reasonable doubt.
Yeah, and the more we examine this case, you know, going into it, Catherine, all the talk in Massachusetts and around the nation eventually was about the conspiracy and everything else, that it's all going to come out. And the format and the way this trial's playing out, this is turning into a very classic reasonable doubt case. And this, from what both of you are saying, seems to be one of those pieces that, hey, you know, one or more jurors could latch onto it and say, well, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense to me, versus, no, this is a conspiracy. Oh, my goodness, Chloe the dog attacked him, and they all covered up for the dog.
That's right. I think the first trial, what they really did was they focused a lot more on the third party, and in some ways burden shifted. And what they did was, in claiming, you know, David Yannetti said Karen Read has been framed, that, you know, juries, even though the defense doesn't have to prove that, they do want you to follow up on what you actually mean by that. And I think this time they've taken maybe the more direct route to a not guilty, which is less trying to prove you know, sort of what their overall theory is, but instead focusing on, you know, the Commonwealth made these mistakes. They did, you know, the investigation on scene, the red solo cups, the snowblower, things like that. And instead, I think that's actually a far safer way and more direct route to a not guilty than trying to prove an alternate theory that is fairly implausible in many ways.
Yeah, it's also difficult to prove because it was never investigated that way. So there's limitations in obtaining all of that proof. All right, our guests are hanging around. Up next, did Kelly Dever, police officer from Boston, formerly of Canton, see Brian Higgins and former Chief Ken Berkowitz in the Sallyport?
Were you advised that lying to those officers would be a crime?
So it was a willing conversation. I've spoken with their legal team. Because of the fact I was provided factual information that showed a statement of mine was a false memory, it was not a lie.
I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the tragic death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe and the retrial of his girlfriend Karen Read. The public is invested in the outcome of this case, but John and Karen's family are even more invested. They're in court every day for the second year in a row, hoping that the truth comes out. Here's the story. The night John O'Keefe died has become one of the most scrutinized in recent memory, marked by chilling uncertainty and fierce debate. Prosecutors claim Karen Read dropped the Boston police officer off outside of 34 Fairview Road in Canton, where he never made it inside and was fatally struck by her SUV. But the defense paints a far darker picture, one where O'Keefe did enter the home and met his end not in the snow, but within those walls. The core of the controversy centers on that unanswered question: did he ever go inside? Surveillance gaps, conflicting witness accounts, and forensic inconsistencies have fueled a firestorm of speculation. Supporters of Karen Read argue a cover-up is unfolding, while others remain convinced of her guilt. The defense is focused on an alleged conspiracy involving planted evidence at the scene. But is there evidence to prove it? All right, there was a new witness called by the defense this time around. They spoke to her first time around, but did not call her. She was a Canton police officer. Kelly Dever is her name. She's now a Boston police officer. So she went from Canton to Boston. Boston Police Department is where Brian Albert, the owner of 34 Fairview, works. But the defense called her for a very specific reason, because of what she told FBI investigators she saw on the day that John O'Keefe's body was found, what she saw at the Sallyport at the Canton Police Department. And then Alan Jackson questioned her. Now, Alan Jackson called her as his witness, so he couldn't lead her, but it was clear she didn't want to testify, and that what she saw or told the FBI she saw, she's now saying that she didn't see. Take a listen.
Did you observe something in the Sallyport garage on January 29th, 2022 that you found unusual, that stuck out in your mind?
Given factual information that makes it so I know I did not, no.
So the answer is no.
Correct.
Do you remember being interviewed on August 9th, 2023?
I do.
That was by a separate law enforcement agency, correct?
Yes.
2 separate law enforcement agents, is that right?
Yes.
And you were advised during the course of that interview on August 29th of something, correct?
Can you rephrase that?
I'm sorry, August 9th.
So what was I advised of? Can you rephrase that?
Sure. Were you advised that lying to those officers would be a crime?
So it was a willing conversation. I've spoken with their legal team. Because of the fact I was provided factual information that showed a statement of mine was a false memory, it was not a lie. Therefore, I made it in good faith, and I retracted given information that it could not be accurate.
Did you tell those law enforcement agents on August 9th, 2023, that you saw Brian Higgins and Chief Berkowitz go into the Sallyport together and alone with the SUV for a wildly long time?
That was my recollection at the time.
So you did say that?
At the time, that is what I recollected.
Okay.
I mean, fascinating testimony, but very unusual, awkward, uncomfortable, but important. It's about the opportunity for someone to get to that tail light, specifically Brian Higgins and former Chief Ken Berkowitz. That's where the defense wants to go with this. And that brings us to the next question in our investigation, and it's all about the testimony of this officer. Did Kelly Dever see Brian Higgins and Ken Berkowitz in the Sallyport? Her initial statement was that she did for a wildly long time. Then she came to the conclusion that that was a false memory. We need some help. A lot of help here. Here to help us answer this question, criminal defense attorney Sydney Rushing is with us. Also with us, body language expert and analyst Scott Rouse. All right, thank you both for being here. Scott, I just want you to tell us what we just saw there. There was a lot going on with her. What are your thoughts about the way she was testifying and talking about this false memory?
This is a controlled answer. This is something she's rehearsed. She's apparently talked to somebody who's walked her through this. This isn't the first time that she said all these things. You get the idea of what you need to say, and then you structure it as you're hearing the actual question. Excuse me, because the question won't be specifically like you expect it to be. So she's prepared for this. She's been prepared for this, I believe. And a lot of the body language you're seeing on there, well, a lot of people will confuse this for someone who's being deceptive. We're not seeing somebody be deceptive. We're just, in parts of it, we're just seeing someone who is giving a controlled and prepared answer.
All right, Sydney, how does that play with the jury?
I don't think it plays well at all. At just about every trial that I've been in, even over the last year, when a witness is combative with the attorney that's asking them questions, I feel like it never favors well for the jury, because they're like, why are you being combative? Why aren't you just answering these questions? I think that her demeanor was very off. I think that she was very combative. I don't think that the defense would have gotten away with, asking to treat her as a hostile witness, because even though she was combative, she wasn't to the point where she wasn't answering questions. But I don't think that her demeanor played well for the jury. I just don't.
Okay, now there's another big issue here, because she went from working for Canton and then went to the Boston Police Department, and prior to the first trial had a meeting with the commissioner, the Boston PD police commissioner. That's a big deal. That's a big job. She's a rookie with the Boston PD. Let's take a look at that back and forth.
Did you have a conversation with anybody in the commissioner's office at Boston Police Department?
Not about anything malicious.
I didn't use the word malicious. Why do you say malicious?
I had a conversation, but it was my department saying, regardless of what I need to say on the stand, they support me.
Did you tell the defense that when you were called up to the commissioner's office, he told you two things? Commissioner Cox told you, number one, the Boston Police Department supports you, and Officer Deaver, do the right thing.
So he said my name correctly. He said Dever, and
That's my mistake. Let's see, like, you want me to repeat the question so I get
So,
that right?
Mr. Jackson, let's go ahead and answer, please.
yes, and he said nothing with the intent of guiding me one way or the
I asked you
other.
what his intent was, madam. I asked you what he said to you. What were his words to you?
That he supports me.
And?
Just wanted me to tell the truth up here.
And his words were, do the right thing, correct?
I don't recall.
Okay, Scott, this is so significant here. Are you sensing, is there any deception? What's going on here? Because this is a big issue for the defense, because their obvious implication is that the commissioner is telling her, listen, you got to be careful about what you say here. Don't get another police officer in trouble. That's the implication. What are you seeing from Officer Dever?
This is a lot of frustration, I think, and it's even though her answers are prepared, the attorney in a situation like this will craft their vernacular and structure their sentences and questions to be aggressive, to get the person they're talking to knocked off their game a little bit. And I think it's working here. So of course she's trying not to be aggressive back, but she's more of an alpha person, obviously, since she's a police officer. So she's trying to keep that under control at the same time while she's trying to give the answer that she's supposed to give during this. So as far as being deceptive, I'm not really seeing any deceptive cues, but I am seeing someone being she's guarding what she says and how she says it. Not from a body language perspective, but she's being very careful with every word she says. And we can see her structuring that and thinking about those answers when she pauses for a minute and looks away from the attorney. So I'm not seeing deception here, but that doesn't mean there isn't any. There are just, in my opinion, I'm not seeing any cues of deception here. She's just delivering the information that, in other words, she's supposed to give. And I think that's what's happening.
Let's take a listen to one more here. And this was a big, big piece of her questioning by Alan Jackson.
My entire job revolves around what I say on the stand right now. If I was to lie, I lose my job. I lose everything. I'm here to tell the truth. I cannot lie while sitting on the stand.
If you agree that what you said to those two law enforcement agents on August 9th, 2023, you would be implicating not one, but two police officers, law enforcement officers, correct? If you agreed with what you said in August 2023 on this witness stand, you would be implicating two officers, fellow officers, correct?
So I'm confused as to what you're asking.
You've now indicated that what you told to law enforcement agents in August of 2023 was a lie.
No.
If you agreed with that statement here on the witness stand, you would be implicating two officers as having been in the Sallyport, weirdly, for a wildly long time with the SUV, implicating not one, but two fellow officers, correct? That's what you would be doing.
It's not possible I saw that.
If you agreed with me, would you be implicating the reputations of two officers?
If I was to lie, then yes.
All right, Sydney, what's the takeaway for the jury on this part of her testimony?
On this part, again, she's being very combative, and Alan Jackson was not asking her a very complicated question. The question is if what you said prior to this, which is where you saw these two officers in the Sallyport for that amount of time, if you testify to that, you would be implicating those two officers. And every time he asked that question, it's pretty a direct question. And I think this is where a lot of witnesses start losing their credibility on the stand, where instead of just agreeing and saying, yes, that's exactly what would have happened, but that is a false memory, or that couldn't have happened. I don't trust the false memory thing. I think that that's a line of baloney, if you ask me. But it's just convenient that all of a sudden you say, I've never saw this. And I just don't understand how you say you saw that. And then I was given some factual information. There's no way I could have seen that. And it's like, You don't just see that and then say you saw that and then change your mind. But she was very combative with Alan Jackson, so it just didn't want to answer the
I
very
think it
simple
compounds
question.
the potential problem for the prosecution, the way that she reacted to all that, but we shall see. Sydney Rushing, great to have you on the program. Scott Rouse is going to stay with us.
Thanks for having me.
Still to come, did the defense threaten Kelly Dever?
Did you share with them that that wasn't an accurate memory?
Yes.
How did they respond?
They became very aggressive.
A VPI special report.
The P. Diddy sex abuse scandal that has rocked Hollywood and the world of hip-hop.
The downfall of a music mogul.
Combs abused and exploited women and other people for years.
An all-new look at the evidence and the latest from inside the courtroom.
That was the moment when everything changed.
Vinnie Politan Investigates, a Diddy special report. Wednesday night, 9/8 Central on Court TV.
Do you recall us telling you that we were looking for the truth about your
Objection.
comments?
I'm going to allow it.
That we were looking for the truth.
Which I gave you, yes.
Did you also say on that phone call something to the effect of, I know you're going to tear me a new one because I'm changing my testimony?
Changing, no. But you're trying to do that.
Did you say, I know you're going to tear me a new one?
That's what you're trying to do, so yes.
Actually, what you said was, you're going to tear me a new ass, didn't you?
I don't recall that, so that's putting words in my mouth.
I'm not asking you to put words in your mouth. I'm asking you if you remember saying that during that phone call. Oh, I know
recall.
you're going to tear me a new ass.
I don't recall.
Okay. But you do remember saying something to the effect of, I know you're going to tear me a new one, right?
Yes.
That was some phone call. That was before the first trial. And Officer Dever, not called in that first trial, called in the second trial. And there was an allegation really made by her as she's testifying that she was threatened by the defense. Take a listen.
Did they threaten to put you in jail when you told them about your mistake?
No, I even spoke with the legal team, and they said that I made a comment in good faith. There was absolutely no way that I could be charged with anything of being malicious.
What were they looking for you to say?
They were looking for me to say that I saw Higgins and Berkowitz in the garage with the car.
Did you share with them that that wasn't an accurate memory?
Yes.
How did they respond?
They became very aggressive, raised their voices, and the one word that I can very definitely remember is they said that they would charge me with perjury.
When you told the defense you had made a mistake about your memory, did they pressure you?
Yes.
Did they pressure you to say something other than the truth?
Yes, they wanted me to repeat a lie at that point, given it would have been with malicious intent to repeat it.
Wow. Things got very, very heated inside the courtroom. So there's an allegation from the witness against the defense team. Brings us to the next question in our investigation. Did the defense threaten Kelly Dever? Was that a threat? Here to add context to our investigation, attorney, former prosecutor Catherine Loftus, and body language expert and analyst Scott Rouse. Scott, this part of the testimony a little bit different. What are your thoughts about what we were seeing there from Officer Dever?
We're seeing a combination of things here. A lot of people will tell you, oh, when you shake your head no as you're saying yes, it means they're being deceptive. When they're saying yes and they're saying no, they're being deceptive. She's using a lot of illustrating with her head. And usually when these things happen, you're saying, even though you're saying no, you say, I didn't do it. Those are affirmation nods. And you say, yes, I did. You'll notice they'll go in time with what's happening. Well, we have a bobblehead going on here. She's going up and down and all around, and that lets us know that psychologically she's not locked on to her answer and what she's saying. So that's the part that bothered me. I'm not so sure she buys the part about having a false memory, is why I'm saying that. She's uncomfortable about talking about that. I think probably because she is under the impression it sounds odd to say that, because how many times do you hear that? I hear that quite often, but I'm sure the nobody else there hears that very often at all. So I'm under the impression that even though her answers are controlled and she's been prepped and ready to go, that really bothers me there. If I was interrogating her, I would start there and start questioning from there, because there's a whole lot of behavior that's odd going on there, especially with the bobblehead happening. There are the yeses and nos and backing up. Yeah. It looks odd to me.
Catherine, this is one of I mean, a lot of people are talking about this witness. It's an important witness for the defense to a certain extent. And just the back and forth with Alan Jackson, and then the allegations that she was being threatened and pressured by the defense. What are your thoughts about what the jury takes away from that?
You know, I mean, it was unexpected, I think, to come out from her, given that she's being called as a defense witness. And then in her own direct examination from Alan Jackson, she, essentially said, you are somebody who was on the phone, one of the male team members threatened me with perjury, and I called the FBI and made a report about it. So it's probably a bit confusing for the jury to see one of the parties calling a witness that then appears to be so adverse. I mean, it was clear what they actually said, what the words were, we won't know. We only have Miss Dever's recitation, but it seems clear that she felt at least some sort of pressure
Catherine,
from whatever they said.
Let me put it this way. Whose credibility does it hurt more in front of the jury? The witnesses or the defense team's credibility?
I mean, I think it maybe I'm not sure that it hurts the defense team's credibility. I don't think it helps them. I think that overall, her testimony didn't help her one bit. I mean, listen, she seemed to be in an uncomfortable position. She obviously didn't want to be testifying. I think there's a world where she could have explained what the position she took. Did she think she saw something? Did she see it at a different time? Maybe when the vehicle wasn't there? And she does not appear to be, despite the fact that she's a police officer, she's a fairly new one, obviously is not testifying in the manner sort of proficient enough to be able to answer those questions in a way that makes sense to the jury. And instead, she just came off as reducing her own credibility.
Scott, how does the position she's in impact the way she presents herself? She's a young officer in the middle of this huge case where law enforcement has been accused of doing wrong things. And she's spoken with the commissioner. She knows there's a lot at stake here.
Quite often when you have a situation like this, especially with a younger officer or someone who was a rookie at the time, and now she hasn't been on that long, she hasn't been on the force that long, you're dealing with a hierarchy there. And you've got to go by the codes, whatever they are, of that hierarchy as you go along, so you don't get dismissed and get things knocked out of your purview of things happening for you as you go through the ranks. So she's probably got that on her mind as well. So a lot of this is frustration and worry we're seeing. We haven't seen her panic yet.
No panic, but I'm panicking because we're out of time, unfortunately. Scott Rouse, great to have you on the program. Catherine Loftus, always great to see you. Officer Devers was thrust into the middle of this case because of her own statement, her own observation, which by itself might not have been such a huge deal, but now that she has changed her story and claimed some sort of a false memory, it's become a much bigger issue. The question is, will the jury believe it is part of a cover-up here? I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues.